Today on Misunderstood with Rachel Yucatel.
99% of people are dehydrated. I would say everybody's got parasites. I'm not knocking Starbucks, it's just not for me. They also blend their matcha with sweetener. They blend it with sugar.
People may only know you as this powerhouse in wellness and nutrition. So I want to start from the beginning.
I grew up with just loving food and the kitchen was always the center of our household. Food has always really been about love and connection for me. In my senior year of college, my daddy was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. There was a moment we're in the living room and my dad is sitting there and he's got this like hard-boiled egg that he's holding and he's looking at this egg. He starts to get super emotional. He starts to sob and he's just like, my life has been reduced down to an egg. I talk about meditation, hydration, and eating the rainbow. Try and get all the colors of the rainbow in because you're actually hitting all the different molecules, all the different polyphenols, all the different vitamins and nutrients that you need.
If someone listening feels overwhelmed by wellness, what is the very first step you would recommend that they take?
Just getting yourself to a point where you are
So many of us think wellness is about green juice, supplements, or counting macros. But what if it's really about something different? What if it's about blending science, nutrition, and energy? My guest today is Serena Poon. She's built her career helping people bridge the gap between science and spirit, showing that the body doesn't just respond to what we eat, but also to what we feel, think, and believe. As a nutritionist, Reiki master, and founder of Serena Loves, she's guided some of the biggest names in Hollywood towards health that radiates from the inside out. But behind that glow is a serious science, deep research into longevity, cellular repair, and emotional resilience. Today, we're talking about what's misunderstood about wellness, why clean eating doesn't always mean health, why burnout is a symptom of disconnection, and how the latest breakthroughs in longevity can be simple, practical, and accessible to all. Please enjoy my conversation with the powerhouse, Serena Poon. Serena, thank you so much for joining me today on Misunderstood. I'm excited to get healthy and live a very long time. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing. I love that you're talking about truth and humanity here. So it's a real pleasure.
Oh.
And I think I see a little fluffy one in the back.
Yeah, one of three.
Reminds me of my little Gizmo. He was a Pomeranian. He's a cross Rainbow Bridge, but it looked very similar. And I was like,
cute. Well, yes, that is a Pomeranian, a very fat and healthy one. Who I just love her too much. I can't, every day I'm like, okay, we're starting her diet and I just can't do it. I'm a sucker.
I understand. They rule the household, so.
Right. So where are you? Where are you based?
Well, right now I'm in LA, which is where I'm based. It's actually highly unusual. I'm usually on a plane. People ask us where we live, and I'm like, business class, usually in there. So it's actually nice that I'm in LA, but I do leave in a few hours.
Oh, amazing. All right. Well, I'm glad you made time for this. So people may only know you as this powerhouse in wellness and nutrition. So I want to start from the beginning. People that might not know you or might not know where you're from and more personal things about you. But can you tell us a little bit of your childhood and how you got into nutrition and wellness to begin with?
Yeah, sure. It's so funny. I don't see myself as this powerhouse. So it's like it's funny to hear you say those words, and I receive it. Thank you. So really, I grew up with just loving food, and the kitchen was always the center of our household. Even when we had massive family gatherings and, you've got tables set up in every room in the house, everyone is sort of like eating and congregating in the kitchen, even if they're standing. And so food has always really been about love and connection for me. And when I was in college, and I was actually in college studying political science. So I am first generation Chinese, born here in the US in LA. My parents are from Hong Kong. They grew up there and then they immigrated over here and, did college and university here. They actually met here, which is kind of funny, but yeah, they met here in LA. And so, it's like standard Chinese protocol, right? Like I'm either supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer or a
Right.
CPA or something like worthy. So I went to Berkeley. I was studying political science so that I could be, because, I said I was going to be a pediatrician and then and then changed my mind. So like the next thing that was, okay to do was to be a lawyer. So studying political science to go to law school, but I was also studying nutrition just because I like loved to eat and I loved food, and it was just more of something I was taking because I enjoyed it. And then in my senior year of college, my daddy was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. So what had happened was, he had this like blood disease, he had Hep B. I don't know if it came from vaccinations or something that they did in young men back then, but his grandfather had it too,
Hmm.
uh, and had died from that. His father didn't, but his grandpa did. So he was checking, as an adult, like every 6 months, making sure that he was okay. And somehow between 2 6 month checkups, he was told that he was okay, to being told he was stage 4. And that was
Wow.
devastating. And he was like in his 40s. So, it just changed life, instantly. And even at the time, you can't like process, and I'm at like 20, right? So you can't process this information. It doesn't matter how much it's like coming down. And so here my dad's telling me, he's got like 5 years, and I'm sitting here thinking I've got to like get married, have babies, like be a big time lawyer all in 5 years. And in reality, he probably only had a matter of months.
Hmm.
And so he kind of stretched that time to a little over a year. It was probably a lot longer than he really should have.
Hmm.
But he wanted to make sure we were okay. And then he transitioned at a little over like a year and 3 months. And, he really did suffer during that time, even though my daddy was a microbiologist, and he even taught parasitology at like Cal State LA at night, and ran the clinical lab there at Huntington Hospital in Pasadena. And so we had support, we had amazing doctors and an amazing oncologist that was like family to us. And so he did chemo and radiation. And he's also drinking like all the teas that our families, like our relatives, are smuggling in from China. So he's doing all the things, but he obviously wasn't getting better. And he was also, in a lot of pain. So, during that time, I started looking at plants and herbs and like, what other things are we not doing that could at least maybe alleviate some of his discomfort? And that's sort of like how I started going in that direction, looking at nutrition. Nutrition just wasn't even like the word didn't even come out during that time period. This was like
Yeah.
over 20 years ago. And so, no one talked about it. And here's my daddy, who's someone that is like, he's a foodie and he like loves food. And he kind of was like, he couldn't eat anything. Everything made him sick. And in order to like get any type of nutrition, like any type of energy into him, they were like, eat egg, like eat a hard boiled egg. And he could barely get it down. So, so that there were a couple really impactful moments that happened during that time, and it just shifted everything for me. I just thought like, this is not like, there has to be more.
Right.
Everyone suffers. It's not just the person who's sick, the whole family. So after he transitioned, and he was 48, my mom was diagnosed 2 months later,
Hmm.
at 45, and it was like this rare form of ovarian cancer. There were only like 24, 25 cases before her. So it was like an experimental sort of like treatment that we did. And she had to do the whole thing. She had to do a full hysterectomy. So she went instantly into menopause, couldn't do any hormone therapy because that was what was driving the cancer. And in the process of shock and grief, she had to do all of that, plus chemo and radiation. And then that became our journey. So, it went from, oh my gosh, there's stuff that we don't know that we're not maybe doing, and looking into plants and food and nutrition, to her doctors measuring the size of the tumor by the time she was diagnosed to when we took everything out at the rate of growth, and saying this started right when my daddy was at his sickest, like when he was dying. And so somehow this is stress related because she has a great genome. There's genetically no markers for cancer. To this day, her siblings and none of her parents had cancer. And
Wow.
it was like stress related. So then sort of like I realized, at the time, and it sounded very noble, it was like all that mattered was the health and happiness of the people that I love. So,
Mhm.
which sounds amazing and great and noble. And at the same time, I left myself off that list. And it was to whatever end, I will sacrifice sleep. I will sacrifice, whatever it is, whatever it takes to make sure that the people I love are healthy and happy, I'll do. So then of course, then I had some health issues because, here you are and you're a caretaker almost to an extreme. And then of course, we also had some other family members that were sick. So there was this like 7 year period where so many people in the family were getting sick or cancer or someone else died, and it was a tough time. And so there's sort of like this desperateness to like make sure everyone's okay. And in that time frame, I, obviously had so much inflammation in my own body, wasn't taking care of myself because somehow we think that we can translate our energy or, to someone that we love and make them better.
Right.
Um, and so then I had to have surgery.
Oh my gosh, Serena,
Like
what a story this is. My
tissue.
God.
I'll try and make it concise. It could go on.
No, no, keep going. This is an amazing story, but very sad.
It is. And what I've learned is everyone has like their experience with the loss of someone that they love or the suffering of someone that they love. And so, our family was going through that. I ended up needing to have surgery to remove like damaged, inflamed tissue in my body. And then I ended up getting MRSA from like the OR. MRSA is MRSA. It's like a deadly staph infection. And I associated this with like soldiers. It was like what, like, soldiers got during the war because they're out there getting wounded and getting infected. And, that's kind of what my association to MRSA was. I mean, you can get it, it happens. Staph is kind of exists sort of everywhere. But it's actually very common to get staph from the hospital, from an environment that's supposed to be sterile.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting this and it was in my chest. And then I almost died. And then I spent the next 8 years kind of trying to get this staph out from in my chest where it sort of was just like made a home. And it's really hard to get it when it's there. So ended up having 8 surgeries, almost died after the fourth one because I had like a massive hematoma like post-op, 12 days post-op.
Wow.
Um, and so all of this kind of led me to where I am now. Because when I first, coming off from what happened with my parents, I decided to go to culinary school. I
Right.
thought, food is medicine and food is love. And here it's not being utilized that way. We forget. And it's not like necessarily the fault of the doctors. It was just the training. It wasn't incorporated and still isn't really incorporated into the training in medical school, food as a form of medicine. So I went to culinary school instead of law school after my daddy passed and after my mom, went through her treatments.
Mhm.
And I studied at Le Cordon Bleu, the Grand Diplôme. I became a chef and I started my journey. I'm like kind of jumping around a little bit. I started my journey doing that, like trying to serve people through food and nutrition almost directly. And then when I went through my own health journey where, I had to have these surgeries and I was still working as a chef and having, and doing my business that way. And then having this, after my fourth surgery, having a near death experience where I didn't know if I was going to be able to even use the whole left side of my arm and my body. And as a chef, you need both.
Right.
And so during my recovery, I was like, what am I going to do like to support myself? Like, how am I going to make a living? So I decided to just focus on the consultation part of my practice, which it was all kind of built into the food and to working with clients. I was always in like private practice and as a private chef. So then I just did the consultation part of it. And because I'm in LA and surgery, like especially elective surgery, is so common here, especially
Mhm.
because one of my specialties, because of my own experience, was pre-op and post-op. how to really prepare the body and the tissue to, optimize for healing, because any type of surgery is traumatic, even small, and the body receives it that way. And then how you really optimize the recovery process post-op. So I started doing that while I was recovering. And, during that time when I almost died, I kind of went through this dark night of the soul, where I'm here and I'm going through this experience and it's painful and it's sad, it's lonely, it's dark. And I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, I'm a good person. Like, I don't understand why this is happening. You kind of like go into the
Mm,
space where you're a victim, like this happened to me, right? And that was when I realized that I like remembered like why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing what I'm doing because of what my dad went through and like what my family went through. And it was just like this shift, this like reminder that it's not happening to me, it's happening for me, and to like
mm,
get back on track. And so that's why, that's when I realized I'm here for a reason, a purpose much bigger than this, much bigger than like sitting in my bedroom trying to figure out how I was going to crawl to the bathroom to go to the to go to the bathroom because
mm.
I was so weak and in so much pain post-op. Um, and that's when I started the consulting part of my business. And that's also when I really dived into my spirituality.
Right.
I had been working with this woman, but very 911-ish. It was like I'd work with her and then I wasn't consistent with the calls. And then I'd like have a moment in 911 and then I'd call her. And I realized here I am. I'm so with my diet and fitness and supplements, everything else really consistent. But with my spiritual practice, I wasn't. So during that time when I was recovering and I was doing my consultation part of my, like building up that part of my business, I committed to being very, consistent with her every 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, to talk to her. And that became that inflection point in my spiritual journey. And after about 8 months, she said, and her name was Nicole, this master healer. She's amazing. She was like in New Mexico and has the most unbelievable story. After about 8 months with her, she said, and she'd go through and say, oh, I'm seeing these colors and this light. And she'd go through what she called releases,
Mm,
head to toe, my body, these releases. And I didn't know what she was talking about. I didn't know what she meant.
mhm.
There's certain areas of my body that needed more. She'd say the energy was stuck or there'd be more that she had to release. And while she was doing that, I was like, well, what can I do to help myself? I just call you, you do whatever you're doing for an hour and a half. I just sit here. I don't really do anything. You call me back and then tell me this is what you did. And I feel better. So as we were going through the body head to toe, and she was telling me where there was like blocked energy and where she did releases, I realized that we're talking about energy centers, and those energy centers, they line up with your organ systems. And there is a synergy, and there's a thread between supporting those different your different energy centers and supporting those different parts of your physical body and your
Yeah.
organs. So that's when I developed like what I call culinary alchemy. And that was where I was, talking to her going, okay, you're working on like my sacral, you're working on this part of my body. And yes, it doesn't feel I'm having issues there. And so what can I do to support that area of my body physically? And that's when I started to design like foods, different types of like certain foods that I would eat or make into a juice or a smoothie and supplements to support the same areas of my body that she was saying needed support energetically. And
Right.
that in culinary alchemy.
So
Um,
wait, can I just stop you for a second? Because I find this whole story fascinating. You've covered like 90% of all my questions back to back. So thank you. You just had a conversation with yourself, but it was all in my head. So thank you very much.
I did.
But I think there's a lot of people that get caught in, so they get sick or someone they know gets sick and they get caught in just listening to what the doctors say, and it's medical, and it's nutrition is off to the side, right? It's not even about food, but it's about the medicines that they're given, or the chemo, or the things that they get in the hospital or are told to do. And then there's the other side of it, which seems to some people a little like hoo-ha-y, right? Whether it's Chinese medicine or it's acupuncture or it's food. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's like a whole placebo effect that doesn't really exist. So my question for you is, when did you start to realize, and I guess we all know because we heard the story with your father, that the medicine wasn't working no matter what they were giving him, and he had a lot of support from very, people with a lot of credibility in the field of medicine, and that didn't work, and he ultimately transitioned. But so when did you start to say there's got to be more, and food is the answer, and herbs?
You're right. It was during that time, even though my daddy did transition, right? There was a moment, and I've shared this kind of like here and there in my journey. There was a moment when, like, I will never forget it. There was a moment we're in the living room, and my dad is sitting there, and he's got this like hard-boiled egg that he's holding, and he's looking at this egg, and I come in, and he starts to get super emotional. He starts to sob, and he's just like, he's looking at this egg, and he's like, my life has been reduced down to an egg. Like, it was so critical for him to take this egg in because he could barely take in any food. Everything was making him sick. And here, this egg is packed with all this protein and all these nutrients. And if he couldn't get anything else in, if you could get in this egg, it would like be just enough to like get him, through half of the day or something like that. I mean, this
Right.
is what we told. And it was so it was it was just one of those moments in life that I will never forget, because not only should no one ever feel like they're reduced down to any one thing,
Mm-hmm.
least of all an egg. Here's my dad, who's like my knight in shining armor, who's so many things, who's helped so many people. But it was the fact that this was something that he loved. Like, food gave him joy. It was a way that we were connecting. And it felt almost like punishment, the way he was, looking at this egg, which is just like now it's like a punishment. So I realized that, like, we aren't using, at least during that time, we weren't using food in a way to nourish
Mm-hmm.
and the soul and our heart and our mind as much as we nourished with the body. And we weren't doing it at all because we were just looking at medicine.
Yeah.
And food in and of itself is, because we get so many amazing nutrients, vitamins and minerals and polyphenols and molecules that activate longevity pathways. This is all coming from Mother Nature in a very natural way, in a way that our body is actually designed better to receive
Mm-hmm.
that medicine through nature than that medicine through chemical pathways, which is why we often have, there's often a side effect or a reaction or a response to like conventional medicine and pharmaceuticals. Not to say that there isn't a need for it,
Right.
but there is so much that we get from Mother Nature through food that can be equally healing, and even more so sometimes, because that's what the body wants. And then there's that emotional component too to it. There's the fact that we have a relationship with our experiences with food. We commune over food. And
Right.
so and this is a big part of my work too, which is, the memories that are connected when we have experiences and when we have experiences with food.
Right.
That can become people's addictions,
Yeah.
and their good habits, both.
What if I told you that the idea that you only get parasites when you travel to some exotic country is flat wrong? Millions of Americans carry parasites right now, often without symptoms. For example, it's estimated that millions in the United States have been exposed to Toxocara, a parasitic worm, yet most never even know it. Parasites do not need a plane ticket. They can enter through tap water, sushi, undercooked foods, or contaminated produce. Some strains live in all stages: eggs, larvae, adults, hidden in your gut, releasing toxins that sabotage your energy and digestion. That's why I'm excited about Parify, Kim Rogers' 30-day full-spectrum parasite cleanse. The kit works by clearing parasites, worms, candida, and heavy metals, targeting parasites in all life stages, supporting gut health, detox pathways, and toxin removal. It's taken orally daily for 30 days with precise dosing. I'm actually doing it myself right now. I started with the lymph cleanse, then I'm doing the Parify. Want to dive deep? I did a full interview with Kim Rogers, the worm queen herself, where we expose all the myths, understand the facts, and show how to protect your body. Listen to that episode if you haven't already. Meanwhile, go to rogershood.com and use the code Rachel to get 10% off of your order. That's RACHEL for 10% off. Give it a try. Maybe your body's missing link is hiding inside. Let's do this together. Again, it's rogershood.com, ROGERSHOOD.com, and use the code Rachel for 10% off. So you brought up longevity, and I want to talk about that for a second. There's a lot of people that choose the medicine path because it seems like the quick fix, like within a couple hours, your painkiller works or the Tylenol or whatever it is, as opposed to spending the time figuring out what food might help the actual headache that you're having. So can you talk about the difference though? Like, for example, I went to Panama a couple months ago and I went and got stem cell treatment. And they were like, this is like a holistic, natural thing. So it's going to take weeks to months to even a year to really see the effects. So here I am sitting around being like, when are my eyes going to get better? When am I going to feel younger and look it and all that stuff? And even though when I was there, I loved it, it wasn't as life-changing as I heard that it would be, right? But they were like, you got to wait. It takes a longer time. So do you believe in that? Do you believe it works? Not just stem cells, but all this natural stuff works, but it just takes longer?
Yeah, no, 100%. Stem cells are, it's a great, it's a good example. Depending on your inflammation levels, stem cells can immediately bring your inflammation levels down. So if you're pretty in tune with your body, you might experience and feel what it feels like when your inflammation levels drop, when within your systemic inflammation levels drop. And depending where inflammation resides in your body, whether it can be, it could be in your stomach, it could be in your joint, it could be in your ear, wherever it is for you.
Yeah.
Inflammation goes down, you might experience some sense of relief, which would be immediate. But over time, yes, it takes time for those cells, I call them like your good little soldiers that you've now received, to go into your body and start to do the repair work. And you are not necessarily going to feel it, but over time, there will be improvements. And it's interesting. And that happens. That's the same thing with like sleeping well every single day, and no one does, but at least most of the time we try to, right? And eating well. I think that's where sort of like the 80-20 rule kind of comes from, where yes, if you have a meal that is, naughty and gluttonous and it's fried and sugary and salty and all the things, let's say you're at like a game or something like that, right? And you're doing, is it going to feel great in that moment? Yes, because it's activating all those like neurotransmitters that make you happy, and then like maybe 4 hours later you're going to feel terrible, right? So there are sometimes those experiences that are immediate, but it is really about the over time. Over time things add up. So to me, longevity, yes, we have, and we're on the forefront, so we see what is happening and what is already here now that the rest of the world will know about very, very soon. But at its core, the foundation of longevity, and I put that in quotes because everyone kind of has their own sort of separate definition that's in addition to living longer. It's really about what you do every single day. It's what you do every single day. It is how you live. It is your, I practice what I call holistic lifestyle medicine, and that's holistic with a W, because it is your physical body, your mind body, your energy body, your soul body. It is all of it, and every part of it has to be healthy. Every part of it has to be balanced, and you have to kind of do it on a regular basis. So, yes, I think that if you drink your green tea every single day and you're getting in those polyphenols and that EGCG and you're getting all those benefits from that green tea, it is absolutely going to pay off in the long run. Are you going to feel like a hit of it, like you might if you had an espresso, and if you're looking at that green tea to give you energy just because it has caffeine, you may or may not experience it. It depends how sensitive you are to caffeine.
Yeah.
But is that green tea going to benefit you in the long term? And are you going to be able to feel 30 years or 15 years of benefits in a moment? No, you won't. But you
Right.
will feel it over time. And when you are, older and you're doing all these things, what you will feel and experience is how you felt when you were younger in reflection, but you're still there now.
Wait,
Yeah.
I want to ask a question about green tea because I've always wondered this. Is green tea and the benefits from it, like you're talking about, can
Mhm.
you get it from all green tea? If you go into Starbucks, if you get the little packets at the grocery store, if you're in the Chinese or Japanese restaurant and they have iced green tea, where are you getting the real green tea from?
So green tea, obviously, like different types of green tea will have, more or less of the different types of polyphenols or like the catechins. So matcha is a form of Japanese green tea and it has the highest levels. I mean, that's something I've been drinking for almost 20 years.
Wow.
And it's probably got the most benefits. At the end of the day, you want green tea that is ideally organic, and it's been grown in soil that's not full of metals, quite often. And there's going to be metals in soil. That's like normal, natural,
Yeah.
that happens in nature. But there are some teas that are grown in soil that has higher levels of certain metals that we don't want in our body. So I would say, pick and choose your teas, do a little bit of research and make sure if it's not loose leaf, which is always best, but if it's not loose leaf, it's bagged in like some sort of plant-based cellulose, so it's not like a microplastic. And make sure it's sourced from a place that's got good soil and it's organic.
So it
That's,
sounds like you would never get matcha at Starbucks, though.
I mean, and much no. I have, I have when I'm really desperate and I'm in some country and I'm just like, matcha. But like, no. And they also, and sorry to all those Starbucks lovers, I'm not knocking Starbucks. It's just not for me. They also blend their matcha with sweetener. They blend it with sugar.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and that's
So
not.
I want to get into a whole day in the life of everything you're eating and doing because I think our listeners are going to want to know. But you brought up that you guys kind of are on the forefront of longevity. So I want to know, I wrote this down when you were talking, what breakthroughs feel most exciting and accessible to everyday people that you're seeing in longevity right now?
Ah. Well, breakthroughs, I have to think about like what is happening in the everyday. Um, well, I think that people have been talking about NAD precursors for a while now. David's been talking about it for, I don't know, like 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And and NAD drips have been around for a long time. I was getting them pre-COVID. So I think it's great that people are aware now of different supplements and molecules that help support our batteries. Here NAD precursors help support that. There it comes in different forms. It can be NMN, NR, NAR. There's different ones. They all help support our system in terms of helping our bodies make that NAD. I
Right.
think that there's a much higher awareness of like mitochondrial support. There's a lot of supplements out there, and that's really important. I think people talk about telomeres a lot. I mean, Dave and I never talk about telomeres, but talking about mitochondrial support, like that's great. And here we have a much higher awareness of photobiomodulation. So, there's all this talk about red light therapy. It's been around for decades and decades and decades.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great that it's way more accessible to people now. So the more accessibility, the more cost, the less cost prohibitive it is, right?
Sure.
So where before red light, because I've been doing red light for, again, like probably 15, 20 years. Now it's something that you can order off of Amazon and you
Well,
can,
that's what I was going to say. When it's so accessible, does it mean that the potency is still there and it's just as good?
yeah, because it's really about the technology.
Okay.
Now you have to make sure you have a good brand. You got to do your research and make sure that that brand, that the wavelengths in that brand, whatever device it is, whatever brand it is calibrated appropriately to the wavelengths that are in the clinical studies, right?
Right.
And with photobiomodulation, it's different wavelengths address different conditions. So, different wavelengths are great for our skin, great for like pain, great for muscle, great for collagen. There's so many different things. It's great for like neurodegenerative conditions. So
Hmm.
it just depends on the different frequency. So whatever it is that you want it for, you want to make sure that the device that you buy is calibrated to give you the results that you want,
Right.
that there's and they've got some paperwork that
Yeah.
shows that they're not just like claiming it and saying it. But just because it's out there for everyone does not mean that it's not great. It's great. It's been around for a long time. People just don't know about it. And even stuff like, hot and cold, whether or not you're in a $5,000 ice bath or you are jumping into your pool or the ocean, it doesn't make a difference. It's about the shock to the system.
Ah,
That's,
okay.
that's what's important. It's about putting that your body in what we call this sort of adversity mode
Hmm.
temporarily, this temporary stress to the system. That's what we want to do. So you don't need to have like an $8,000 like bathtub filled with ice or something that keeps it. It's just and it's not for everybody either. It's not
Right.
necessarily women, it can be very good for men. But if you're talking about Chinese medicine and some of these more Eastern practices, balance is really what we're always looking to have, and there can be good stresses, but, extreme hot and extreme cold is not necessarily beneficial for women during different times of our lives, different times of the month. You have to be really mindful about that type of thing. But what I'm seeing more and more, which I think is great because I've always been about like ancient wisdom,
Hmm.
that's on the forefront is that we are now just sort of making we are just making devices and we're making ancient wisdom more accessible.
Right.
We're talking about like the biohacking world,
Right.
whether or not we're talking energy or quantum. I mean, these things have been around since like Tesla. It's
Right.
now there's more and more devices and products that we can buy. Same
Right.
thing with like testing, right? Like you
And
can.
you do Reiki, right? Reiki?
Yeah, I do Reiki. It was during that time when I kind of figured when I developed Culinary Alchemy and I was working with that master healer that was in New Mexico, not Nicole, Noelle. She, after about working together for 8 months, she was like, come out to Santa Fe. I want to like teach you everything that I do.
Hmm.
Because she really thought she was like 70 and she really thought she was going to transition soon. So
Hmm.
wanted like apprentices. And so at first I was like, "What? Are you crazy? I can't do what you do. Like this is nuts." And I was scared to go.
Hmm.
And then finally, after about I think it was November, I went in February, so it was like 3, 4 months. I finally went there. I went by myself. It was the first time I was meeting her in person. She picked me up in this like giant old clunky Cadillac from Albuquerque, and then we drove out to Santa Fe, and I stayed with her in her house. And she showed me everything that she did. Like she had all these papers for me and notes and like, stuff that she had written down when she channeled and we channeled. I mean, it was,
Wow.
it was nuts. It was so cool though.
And
And
did
I,
she do like spiritual journey stuff? Like I was just in San Francisco this weekend and everybody was talking about how every 3 months they go on some LSD journey and it's totally changed their life, which
uh,
I'm too scared to do. But this seems to be part of what everyone's doing now.
yeah, so it's so funny the different things that trend. I've never done that, and that wasn't what she did. It was just totally just like energy.
Got it.
And it was when I came back from that weekend with her. I was so nervous about doing it wrong. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
trying to do it the way Noelle does it, but I want to do it wrong. And I was also working with this other healer. He's amazing. Rob, he's based in Barcelona. He was just like, there's no way you can like do it wrong. Everyone just has like their own technique and their own style that they've kind of curated through their experiences.
Mhm.
So I decided to study Reiki because I just like needed some structure. I like
Mhm.
I just needed a program. I needed some structure. And so I did that for 3 years, became a Reiki master. And I've studied so many things,
Hmm.
quantum touch and energy to somatic to, I mean, there's so many different things. And so now when I do it, it's really like a combination of everything. So I may call it Reiki and it is, but I add in other things too to
Got
it.
it. Okay, so can you walk people through what you think is good, like this holistic approach with your, culinary alchemy and all this? Like, what should we be eating and doing every day, starting with obviously a good night's sleep?
Okay.
Wait, does it count if you have to take a sleeping pill to sleep?
Well, you should be taking Sweet Dreams
Okay.
because it works much, much better. I'll send you some.
Okay.
It's actually taking people off of like Ambien. People aren't jet lag on it. Like I have no time.
Wow.
I just like sleep wherever I need to sleep. Like I never get jet lagged. It's just something that really helps your body get into the circadian rhythm it needs to be in wherever you are.
Mm,
And it gets you, like if you wear like a wearable, like some sort of a tracker, you'll see the next day it gets you very good deep sleep and very good REM sleep. So I'm about quality of sleep. It's not
okay.
like it's about quality sleep. So if you are sleeping 4 or 5 hours, but almost the whole time you're in deep and REM, like you're probably getting better quality sleep than someone who's in bed for like 8 hours and only getting like 30 minutes, or like
Yeah.
40 minutes of one or the other. But, I keep it really simple. People ask David and I all the time, like, if you had three things that are top three things for longevity, like, what would you say? We obviously say different things. He talks about molecules.
Mhm.
I talk about meditation, hydration, and eating the rainbow. You know, at some point in your day, it would be ideal if you could cover the colors of the rainbow through whole base, like whole foods, so through your plants, like vegetables, fruits, try and get all the colors of the rainbow in because you're actually hitting all the different molecules, all the different polyphenols, all the different vitamins and nutrients that you need if you can actually kind of like make sure that you're hitting every color. It's really easy to do. It's a visual. It makes your food look pretty if you can get it all on one plate, and if you can't, at least throughout the day. And it's a really simple thing that I can even teach kids because
Right.
doing it as a family, it works even better. So that's a very simple thing to remember, and you can do it anywhere on the planet because wherever you are, you're just like being mindful about the choices when you're going through the menu if you're eating out, like especially if you're traveling.
So, do you care about calories? Do you care about carbohydrates or meats? Like, do you stay away from eating meat?
So I'm personally plant-based.
Okay.
I have to be a bit more mindful about making sure that I get in enough plant protein, or supplementing with some amino acids, like some essential amino acids, if I do not get in enough. So it's a little bit trickier if you are plant-based, for example, because you have to make sure that you're ticking off all the boxes.
But are you plant based because that's your personal choice, or do you believe that no one should be eating animal meat?
Oh no, I mean, it's my personal choice. It started for me when it was during this time when I had all these surgeries,
Mhm.
and and because surgery in and of itself, so inflammatory.
Yeah.
It's so hard on your system. I was trying to put myself in the least inflamed state that I could possibly be in,
Mhm.
that I could control, with like diet and what I was putting into my body. So I went plant-based. But then, of course, the irony is after my fourth surgery, when I like almost died and lost like 2 liters of blood from internal bleeding, I ended up having to eat liver. I mean, I was right back into like full meat because I
Wow.
had to rebuild my hemoglobin, and I had to build back my blood. But I'm not opposed. It's more about being mindful about how much meat you are eating. And I will always recommend to everybody to make sure there's more plants, on your plate than anything else.
Okay.
Um, I don't count macros. I'm not a big caloric counter, and I don't count like carbs. I have a lot of people who are like, oh, I try and stay away from carbs. Really, it's person dependent. We do need a balance of all of it. We need some healthy fats, we need some healthy carbs, and we need some healthy, protein. Like
But
whether
will you eat pasta or you'll make zucchini pasta?
oh my God, I will eat pasta. I probably have pasta at least once a week. Are you kidding? Like, I'm Chinese. I grew up on noodles and rice, it's
Right,
comfort food.
right.
Uh, so yeah, I mean, Italian food is probably one of my favorite things to make. It was my favorite coming out of culinary school. It was my favorite
Wow.
cuisine to make. I love making fresh homemade pasta too. So
Wow.
absolutely. I mean, your body needs a balance of things.
Yeah.
So
Okay. And
so
and what does your cheat day look like or your cheat meal?
Okay, so I have such a weakness for fries. And
Okay.
I will get fries if I've been traveling for 22 hours from like the US to Asia and we check into a hotel and we will order French fries. And
Okay.
it's not the end of the world. So, and there's a lot of things, and some people are really strict about seed oils. Well, unless you're at a certain restaurant, if you're going to have anything fried, it's going to have oils in it that are not good for you. But so is the air that you breathe, depending on what city that you're in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't believe in perfection. That's not a way. Like I believe in being very mindful, being educated, taking care of yourself, providing yourself with as much resources as you possibly can, but knowing that at the end of the day, it's your basics and fundamentals. That's where it all comes from.
Right.
So having like your emotional well-being, so important to longevity.
I want you to tell our listeners about your brand, Serena Loves. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, so Serena Loves is it's basically like a lifestyle brand in a way, but I also have supplements there. So my brand, my platform really is very education driven and
Hmm.
education focused. There's tons of information on there. And it's really about education, nourishment, and providing you some tools that can help you on your journey. So there is everything from, I'll talk about everything from Reiki and food and nutrition, all the way to stem cells and exosomes and peptides and aphoresis, and everything that's happening out there in the world that we're not talking about on a regular basis yet. And then I have supplements because what I found during my now over 20 years of private practice was, there weren't products that I could recommend to my clients and
Yeah.
felt very confident in. So now I have a supplement line like certain SKUs that I think are what everybody should have. And
Is
I
one of them the thing you were talking about to go to sleep?
oh, Sweet Dreams. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That's I didn't even realize that was going to be as popular as it is, but I mean, I've got many actually world leaders on that, and it's just a game changer
Is
for.
it a tea or it's a pill?
It's actually a chewable.
Oh,
So I only
even
have
better.
chewables. Yeah, and people like it. So it's a chewable, and it's really about the recipe. It's a blend. It's nothing like super crazy special. It's a little bit of 5-HTP, a little bit of inositol, a little bit of L-theanine, and then a little bit of melatonin, but only 1.5 milligrams because you're not supposed to be taking a ton of melatonin. Actually, is not ideal for you or your brain. And we can talk about that another
Well,
time. But
just quickly, why does melatonin work on some people but doesn't for others?
I think it depends on the amount. I think that what people are taking, most of the time, people are taking too much. You
Oh,
know,
interesting.
Yeah, anywhere like right around between 1 and 3, especially for women. Women going through menopause or perimenopause start to have issues with sleeping. And, between 1 and 3 is a good target. And if it's kind of like sustained release, that's really what works better with our body. It's interesting that you asked me that because there are some people that say that it gives them nightmares.
Mm,
I've had like maybe a handful of people that say, "Oh, I can't take melatonin. It gives me nightmares." But I also don't know where they got their melatonin from, like
right.
what format of it, how high the dose, what brand. Kind of depends. I mean, if it's blended with other things, it may or may not be the melatonin that's, giving them nightmares. But it depends on what form of it that you're taking and the dosage.
What is one thing that we all are misunderstanding that we all are eating right now or putting in our body that is so dangerous?
Oh, wow. Um, Well, it's been talked about a lot, but it's true. I would say microplastics are a really, and it's been an ongoing thing. There's been a lot of talk about it recently, just because there's finally been some long-standing studies that have been published.
Hmm.
It's hard because it is in everything, right? You can go get a paper cup from a coffee shop, and that paper cup is probably lined with plastic somehow, just so it doesn't leak. That's why those paper cups with our drinks don't leak after 20 or 30 minutes. It's because it's lined. Um,
Right.
and so it's really about being more mindful of it and choosing non-plastic whenever you can, because we're going to get it in. We're going to get it into our systems no matter what.
Hmm.
Uh, and then there's different ways to take it out. One of the things when we're talking about, sort of like modalities or therapies and treatments, you brought up stem cells, which, by the way, you can do them here now. So, you don't have to go all the way to Panama to do them. We can talk about that later. I'm like, stay in the States.
Well, actually, let's talk about that also because they were so specific about how in Panama they have much more transparency. Here, let's be honest, you could go to any med spa that's run by a 25-year-old person who doesn't know where they're getting their stuff from. It just says they're doing a facial with exosomes or, they're giving you stem cells and you probably don't know where they got it. And I don't even know if they know where they got it.
Yeah, they probably don't. So I would not do that ever. You
Right.
know,
So where would you get the stem
you-
cells in America?
well, I have a source for stem cells, and
Okay.
it comes from an FDA registered laboratory. It's got an IND. So, that means that the FDA is aware that the products that are in this lab are being reviewed as an investigation new drug. So that means it is it is at the highest caliber in terms of viability, sterility. It is being checked across the board and it's held at the highest standard.
Right. But where are we finding that?
So you can ask your provider, you can ask them for the certifications. They have to show it to you if they have it. You can
Right.
ask them where it's from. I mean, ideally, your stem cells are from cord blood that is from a cord bank from a US hospital,
Right.
where they have patient records and they can check for all of that. Like you can ask for that. And that's one of the most, my team has actually been asking me to do like an educational series on like exosomes and stem cells and um, all the different questions that you want to ask.
Hmm.
Viability is one of them. You want to make sure that what you're getting isn't like frozen dead, you know,
Yeah. Right.
frosted and there's no viability, right? So that's a good question to ask. It's important to ask where it's from.
Hmm.
It's really important to ask if it's been expanded. That's
What does that mean?
that means that they've taken like the first generation of cells and they've expanded them in a dish, and so they can expand it or blossom. There's different words for it, all kinds of it means the same thing, and there's multiple generations, and you really don't want anything past like 3 generations. Ideally, you're getting stuff that's first generation.
Got it.
Means this is like from umbilical cord, blood, or some is umbilical cord tissue, but umbilical cord blood. And that's going to be like the safest for you as long as it's been processed, as long as it's been processed at a lab that has these certifications and are held at these standards, then you're getting something that's safe.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's a really good point that you make. It's not easy,
Yeah.
to get these things. And usually, if it's the right source, then the provider can give you that information.
Right. And you would think, I mean, the providers that are getting the real stuff will want to show you that. It's
Oh,
the people that
100%.
push back that I wouldn't use their stuff.
100%. I'm always
Yeah.
like, this is what we have here. These are the percentages, this is where it's from. This is like,
Yeah.
it traces all the way back to like the cord bank that it's from. If someone can't show you that, don't use it. It's the same thing with supplements. If you have a question about how much NMN is in that, we get this question all the time, like what brands, and it's like, we can't keep track of brands, I have no
Yeah.
idea. But what you can do is you can always ask the brand itself, I want to see your certificate of analysis. That is public information. They have to show you,
Right.
and some will literally just have it on their website because they're legit. And that certificate of analysis will show you how clean it is, and the concentration, how pure it is. It'll have all of that there. And when they're legitimate, they can provide it for you, or they can at least tell you uh,
Right.
with the other.
Um, Last question on your daily intake. Do you drink alcohol?
I don't, but it's not like I won't, if I really felt like it and if I wanted to like, I don't know if there was a celebration or if I felt like it, then I would. I stopped drinking alcohol back when I did IVF. So when I was doing IVF to freeze my eggs many, many, many years ago, I just wanted to be as healthy and clean as possible. And so I stopped drinking for like 9 months.
Did you notice a difference in yourself?
Huge difference. I mean, you will look younger within a matter of weeks. Like your
Wow.
skin instantly gets better. I mean, alcohol at the end of the day is a toxin, like it is what it is, and from a social perspective and a communal sort of like community perspective, it makes sense that we've just kind of ingrained it into ourselves that like we kind of need to do this to do that. So I get that, but we should not like deceive ourselves. Like it's a
Mm.
toxin. And if you're going to take in a toxin, just know that you are and take some binders, take binders before bed and make sure it doesn't like, hurt your liver. Have it just kind of like have the binders bind to the toxins and pass through your liver. Make sure you stay hydrated and you nourish your body the next day.
Right.
Um, but I mean, that is kind of where it started from was when I did the IVF, and then it just became part of my lifestyle, and you kind of like forget, you're just like,
Yeah.
oh, you drink. And then there's just more and more and more studies that come out that show damage, and it's not like a preach of mine. It's just it's not good for you. So if you're gonna do it, it's like me eating fries. I know fries aren't good for me, but I like
Right.
it. I eat it once in a while.
Right. We had on last week a woman who is known as the Worm Queen. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's gone viral and has a whole platform based on putting out a parasite cleanse. And she fully believes that parasites are in America. Everyone thinks that they have to travel to get them and go to some, tropical place. And she says they're right here. And she thinks almost everyone has them and they don't know it. So, do you believe in a parasite cleanse here?
I do, and I 100% agree. We all have, like, I would say everybody's got parasites. I mean, it might not be in high numbers. A full pathogen panel is a standard test that I run for every single client, for everybody. And that tells me the amount of parasites, bacteria, fungal, virus, like everything that's
Wow.
in it. And so,
Are they freaked out by that answer that comes back?
I mean, no, I mean, it depends, like I don't usually when I'm working with someone, they don't get the results, I get the results. And then I go through the results and I tell them what they need to know. And I don't freak out anybody about anything because
Right,
everything is solvable and everything is resolvable. Like
right,
whatever it is that's going on with you is going on right now in this moment in time, and we can change it.
right.
So,
But that's what's interesting because the cause of whatever it is, the headaches, the stomach aches, the bloating is about what's in your body, don't you think?
oh,
Yeah,
for sure. And
yeah,
parasites they are the source of a lot of those problems. I mean, even cancers. I have some colleagues that like truly believe that parasites are the root cause of every kind of like disease and ailment. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that sentiment.
right,
I will say that I agree that parasites are the root cause for a lot of conditions. And I mean, listen, there's something called zoonotics. I mean, we give things to our fur babies and they give them to us. I mean, you don't have to swim over in Bali to like pick up something. Like,
right,
yeah, you can get it. You can get it here and you can get it easily. And most of us have a little bit of everything, but our bodies and our immune system knows how to take care of it. Some people, it's out of hand, and
mm,
if it's out of hand and it's coming out of you, then, I mean, even if before then you should do a cleanse. It's good to do these cleanses like at least like once a year or something like that. Uh,
yeah.
but
I mean,
yeah.
fascinating stuff. All right, last question. If someone listening feels overwhelmed by wellness,
Mm.
what is the very first step you would recommend that they take?
I would say start small, like the way I work with clients. And, I work with some of the most prominent people on the planet. Like, we start small because you can't make something a part of your lifestyle. It's not sustainable when you're overwhelmed. And one of the things I start everyone on is just hydration. 99% of people are dehydrated. I think
Yeah.
in the entirety of my career, I've had like 3 clients ever that were well hydrated. One of them was a pro athlete, like of the elite of the elite. Other than that, everybody is chronically dehydrated.
Yeah.
Just getting yourself to a point where you are drinking enough water that your body does not have to ration it is a small but massive, massive improvement that everyone and anyone can do, literally starting like right now.
How many glasses of water does that take?
It depends on the person.
I mean, I don't know that I have one a day. I'll be honest with you.
Okay, then you need to
Then
start,
me, I'm off.
you know. So yeah, so it depends on the person. Like I have like I say you should try to target 1 ounce like per pound that you weigh, in that if you weigh 120 pounds, shoot for 120 ounces. Okay. Now you might not get there, but make a goal to get 3/4 of the way. So if you are 120 pounds and your target is 120 ounces of water, try to get to like, 100,
Right.
like 90. I mean, that's a little bit less than 3 liters. Now, if you're someone that works out, you do cardio, you sweat a lot, you do hot yoga, you're going to need more.
Hmm.
And our bodies, and this is something everybody really needs to remember, our bodies are the most incredible, complex, amazing machines. Our bodies figure it out. Like, whether or not we consciously decide, our bodies take in whatever it is that we give it, and it figures out how to like get through and survive. So you not barely drinking a glass of water a day, you have not keeled over and died yet, because your body has figured out how to take whatever it is that you are giving your body and make it work with that amount of hydration. Now,
Right.
function better if you give it more, 100%, Like, does it mean you're going to function optimally if you go and you slam 2 liters of water today? No, that's not what's going to happen. Just like anything else, you have to like, because your body is used to a specific baseline right now. It's
Mm,
function on a glass of water a day or two, whatever it is that you do.
yeah.
So as you add in more water, you're going to have to like, give your body the opportunity to kind of like integrate it in, assimilate it, and realize this isn't a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not just getting an extra glass today. Like, oh, okay, I'm getting now 48 ounces of water a day. Now I can adjust. I can adjust my system to know that I can get in 48 hours, 40, not 48 ounces, and then you also detox accordingly as well. So water is the simplest thing, and we can start right now. And then the other thing I said about eating the rainbow is just like, just think about what you're putting into your body today. Like, did you only do like, only doing greens is not good either, right? Like, did you only do one color, one thing, or what did you put into your body today? Try and make an effort. I mean, you can go get a wrap and have all the colors in a single wrap.
Right. Does sparkling water count?
I mean, sparkling water can count. It's not quite as like, well, it can, especially if it's like mineral water.
Right.
You
Okay.
can't end up drinking as much,
That's
because
how I've survived, I guess.
yeah. Yeah. So, little by little, add it in a little bit more. And of course, you want it to be like quality water. But that can be a whole nother conversation because I don't want to stress people out. It's like, I gotta drink more water, and now it's got to be special kind of water. Just at least get yourself hydrated, because, if you're talking about quality of water, the better the water, like the more actual hydration you get. So you don't want it to be like depleted of minerals. And if it doesn't have minerals, put a little bit of like natural salt in there. You know,
Right.
that helps.
I keep hearing that that's the thing to do. All right. So, Serena, we could talk to you for hours and ask you a billion questions, but tell people where they can find you so they can get some answers on their own.
So on social, Instagram, you can find me at Chef Serena Poon. And then on my website, it's serenaloves.com. And thank you so much for having me today. I know I just went on and on and on.
No, it was great. And if people want to get your supplements and the sleepy time,
Oh yeah, that's on the website.
on the
That's
website. All right.
and you can go to the supplement section.
Perfect. And we'll put it in the show notes as well. Serena, thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Yucatel. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating and review. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/misunderstood with Rachel Yucatel. Do you have ideas for the show or want to reach out? Email us at info misunderstoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled MISS understood. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.